So five of us had a deal this morning. We changed the format, maybe late in the afternoon, so we want to have more interaction. So I will introduce about the panelists today, and then I will give them like up to 5 minutes talking about what they interest and relate with social media. And then later you can raise the questions, or if you don't have questions, we will raise the questions for you. So we will have more interaction in the room. As you remember, 2 days ago I wrote an article about the digital identities, and I remember that when I participated in hosting a course in Ho Chi Minh City, where I was the lecturers in Ho Chi Minh, and then I remember that all the participants in that course called a journalist with his nickname on Facebook. They didn't make the effort to ask his real name for the first time when he met him. So I see that how powerful the identity of each people now they build up on social media, especially Facebook. And everyone in our rooms may remember to be told how our parents had a day in 1970 or 1980s without internet. And I also remember Thomas Hardy, a very famous scholar, talking about like how public space and internet shop in Vietnam changed the way how the young people they communicate and interact with each other. And one of my students certified that internet is Facebook and Facebook is social media. So in the sense that all of her activities on Facebook, and she makes use of Facebook for connecting, news access, and also she enjoys a lot of cultural and artistic events. For example, this event via Facebook. So, and also I remind you a statistic that the guy this morning from Ericsson said that in Vietnam we have over 50 million of internet users, and Facebook, we are the top 10 Facebook users in the world. So, and also, according to the most update report by social media, We Are Social, that Vietnamese people spend up to 2 hours and 39 minutes on social media by any device. So, in this panel today, we will discuss the potentials of social media in Vietnam as well as the challenges can be approached. So, firstly, I would like to introduce Dr. Đặng Hoàng Giang, the Deputy Directors for the Centers for Communities and Development Study. And Dr. Giang is also the author of two very famous books in Vietnam, Bức xúc không làm ta vô can and Hit Up Smartphone. And also on my right hand, I would like to introduce Mr. Châu Đoàn. And a lot of people call him Văn Võ Song Toàn. That means he's also a good writer and also a good martial art master. So his posts on Facebook also encourage a lot of people to speak up about their problems. And next to Mr. Châu Đoàn is An Senior. She's a journalist, trainer, and leadership coach with 30 years experience in news business, and also work for Reuters in Europe, Asia, and the United States. And I also spent several years in Japan and Singapore. And I had a chance to work with her with a course for journalists in Ho Chi Minh City, hosted by IMC, VGA, and Embassy of UK. And we also developed a handbook for journalism in the digital age. And next to An Senior is Michael Gray. And Michael Gray used to spend 12 years in Vietnam for several projects. And also, he did focus on helping to support the online safety and digital skill for internet users in Vietnam. So now I would give each of you up to 5 minutes to talk about your interests related to social media. So who went first? Dr. Giang?
Yes, good afternoon. 5 minutes about myself, my interest. First about my work. I could say that I work mainly in two areas. In one area, I run an NGO, which there's research project to improve good governance. So basically, my colleagues over there, we collect 14,000 interviews per year from the citizens, and from there we draw a picture about how satisfied they are with their local governments. And with that information and the transparency, we try to improve the efficiency and the performance of governments. So this is the first area of work. It's about transparency, accountability, and also anti-corruption. And the second area of my work, I could label that as activism, where I write books, deliver public talks, and create also physical space for debates and knowledge dissemination. And as Chung said, earlier this year I just published a book called The Good, the Bad, and Smartphone. And in that book I discussed the dark sides of social media and what we could do about that so that we could keep social media healthy and positive and constructive. I myself, as in my work and also as in my activism, I use Facebook a lot, social media a lot. It's a very important tool for me, but my relationship to Facebook is changing. I think it's changing for the worse, because first, right now I'm worried that it's destroyed my life, personally, because I'm checking Facebook too often, against my will, but I'm weak. So it's Facebook kind of winning all the time, and I deinstall Gmail, I deinstall Facebook, I just get Messenger, but I still keep checking Messenger all the time. And the same, my kids do it on the same, and my wife also. So it destroyed my personal life, and I can't be alone anymore. I don't enjoy being alone anymore. I can enjoy arts and music because every 2 minutes you want to get back to Facebook. So it's a bit like alcohol, If you drink a little bit, it's nice. You kind of get, motivated or get, in a good mood if you drink wine. But if you drink too much wine, and then, it's you get a headache, and it's bad. And I think the same situation is going around, with almost everybody. Maybe except people who gets martial arts training, like Choduan, he could control his Facebook consumption. But other than that, we are kind of hopelessly the victim of our addiction, What to do about that, What about our kids? What about our relationship, Can we talk to each other and have a nice dinner without, the phone? And that's one level. I think the next level is about, it's much more serious. It's about how, let's say, people with ill intention on social media could destabilize democracy, like the US election, UK, or spreading fake news and so on and so on. And what can we do about that so that we could keep Facebook as a tool for a democratic process, to get better, to really promote freedom of expression and not hate it. And I think that's the challenge, where a lot of countries and governments and civil society are having a very hard time to grapple with that question and find a solution. I think we are having a hard time ahead. We have been created that kind of fantastical, creature, and what are we going to do with that? And could we tame the Frankenstein we created or not? This is a fundamental question, and we hope that in the next few years we could find a way to really maximize the potential, the positive potential of social media, but also minimize the danger of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Mr. Choduan?
Good afternoon. So sorry. All right. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for the honest confession. I had a tea break, and then someone told me she never met me before, but the moment she met me, she trusts me a lot. Because my gray hair. Because in Vietnam, a lot of people, when they have gray hair, they dye their hair. So you can see that. You can trust Mr. Zhang and me. And you too. Yes. Actually, I have the same problem. I have the same problem of writing too many posts on Facebook. And right now, I'm limiting myself. Everyone is involving, I mean, when I first write Facebook, I write a lot, but then I recognize that I need to be more careful. I need to choose the subject more carefully. But anyway, I'm the person who, firstly, about my work, I'm the martial artist. I train and I teach karate, the Japanese martial arts, okay? And I'm a novelist. I wrote 5 novels and 3 published. And I work also as a journalist and did a lot of international media. Like I work as a photojournalist for Reuters, AFP. But on this event, I would like to say that I'm quite active as a Facebooker. And I believe that social media is a good tool to change society. Because it somehow gives the people, the voiceless people, the position to be as a writer, and everyone can be a journalist. And with your smartphone, you travel somewhere, you see something important, you can take a photo, you can record the video, and you can work as a journalist, and you are speaking the truth. And the truth is important for Vietnam. Vietnam is a developing country, and the political system also have a lot of things to learn. And corruption is a big problem in Vietnam. And the people who have power also abuse power. And they bully the voiceless and the weak people. And I think that information is important to expose the corruption, the bad thing in society. And if everyone can be, like you can call it a citizen journalist, then that will change society. Only like in Vietnam, there are a lot of examples when social media community can help to expose some cases of corruption or to support some people who are in trouble. Like a teacher, a female teacher, she wrote a poem, and just like very simple poem about her perception about society. And that is a very sad poem. And her boss and the Department of Education and even the police department called her up. Yes? And another case is a woman who working for the government, but she's happened to be a neighbor of one of the provincial leader. And she posts only a few words on Facebook, and that's her right to do it, right? And then she also had a trouble. I can tell a lot of examples like that. But since, with the support of the social media, and also with the support of the media, of the, like, you could call this like the mainstream journalism, then those people, then the government, the local government, withdraw the punishment. So social media is, I think, it's a great tool. It's a great tool. In the past, if someone knows about something happening in society, the journalist can go there and write about the story. They know about 1 or 2 cases, if the victims are lucky. But with the social media, if someone has a problem, he can post it right away on Facebook, and he can have a support from the community. Then I believe that would change society in a good way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Anne?
Hello everybody, thank you for inviting me. As Ai-Chung said, my name is Anne Senior, and I've been a journalist exactly 30 years this year, which is a long time. And in those 30 years, I've seen many changes in technology and in the journalism profession. So my passion and my interest these days, I'm now a teacher of journalism ethics and best practice in digital journalism. And in fact, I'm here at the invitation of the Vietnamese Journalists Association to hold a seminar to explore best practice in the use of social media to inform the general public and support society, and the challenges that social media present in terms of verification and fake news. But maybe as my colleagues did, perhaps I can tell a personal story to illustrate this journey of the past 30 years. When I first started as a journalist in 1987, I wrote my first stories on a manual typewriter. I bet some of you in this room have never even seen one, let alone know how to operate it. Am I right? Yes. So I had a manual typewriter. I had a desk phone, no mobile phones in the office in those days. And so the way we reported was through the telephone, the public library, face-to-face interviews, and the good old shoe leather journalism, getting out into the communities that we serve. And that was great, but actually it took a very long time to report a single story. It was time-consuming and difficult to dig out information and verify it. And as journalists, we were very much dependent on the information holders, governments, businesses, to use those journalists as information brokers to then transmit information to the general public. So I think it's very tempting to focus on the downsides of social media, but I can say from personal experience that social media allows us to, in many ways, to better perform our mission as journalists, giving us access to so many voices, so many sources of information, and to really connect with the general public. So our mission as journalists is often defined in 4 or 5 points. And I think you can argue in almost every case, social media can be beneficial. So these points are to give a voice to the voiceless, to make the hidden findable, to reveal what is hidden, to speak truth to power, and to connect communities. In all those dimensions, social media can be a great asset for a journalist. But in our fifth part of our mission, to verify information and debunk or discredit false information, social media poses perhaps a bigger challenge. So when I think about this, the image I try to use in my mind is that social media is like the village square of olden times. In olden times, you knew pretty much everybody in the village square. Trust was important. If you betrayed that trust, there were consequences in the way that people would deal with you. I now feel like social media is the village square, but times a million, billion, gazillion in its size. You still have all those benefits. I can find people and connect with people I could never have found in olden times. But also in this village square, in the village marketplace, there are people in disguise. There are people masquerading as other people. There are people using a megaphone to shout their opinion. And there are members of the expanded village square seeking to mislead and co-opt others into a kind of mob rule. So I think those are the challenges that we face, and this is why I'm passionate about the responsibility and the mission of professional journalists to help people make informed and data-based decisions about their lives, and to help provide a reliable market stall within this marketplace to go to for good quality produce and products.
Thank you very much. Great story. And Michael Grace, please.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. So my name is Michael, and like Zhang and Cho, I am a social media addict. But I'm not here to talk about myself. My interest is in helping to support youth in Vietnam to have a better digital future, to have that sense of a strong and positive social media and online experience. My project is Digital Citizenship Vietnam. The SecDev Foundation is a small Canadian organization, an NGO, that has worked in many countries in Eurasia, the former Soviet Union, and in the Middle East. And for the past 2.5 years, we've been active here in Vietnam. When we started in Vietnam, overwhelmingly what we saw was we wanted to work towards digital literacy, but we found that in terms of all of these youth that were going on social media, there were some very basic and fundamental problems. We couldn't work on, getting kids to understand rights and responsibilities when they could not even protect their account from their social media accounts from being hacked, right? We did some research, a survey, where we had 1/3 of youth respond that they had lost their Facebook account, at least one Facebook account, to hackers. We wrote a little bit of research on that. So we decided, well, we really need to start with the basics. So the project for the past 2.5 years has focused very much on just online safety, digital safety. Our first campaign was to promote the use of two-factor authentication in Vietnam. Again, a very basic step that helps to protect accounts in a very effective way. We worked with a number of very well-known celebrities, singers, and actors and actresses in Vietnam to use their Facebook accounts, because some of them have millions of page fans. It was just a photo campaign where they did little photos like this, two-step authentication, saying I've set up two-factor authentication on my account, and you should too. And that was an excellent experience. We were able to track through the help of one of the SMS service providers how many people had actually sent in new requests for two-factor codes, and it was tens of thousands of people who took the step of protecting their accounts in an effective way that they maybe didn't know about before. We have organized with partners including Live and Learn, which is an NGO here in Hanoi, and Vietnet ICT, another NGO. We have worked on Safer Internet Day in Vietnam, which didn't exist before, but we've been running Safer Internet Day here for the past 2 years. We have a number of campaigns. I won't go into too much detail about them, but we do have some information upstairs. We have a little table upstairs. If tomorrow morning or after the panel you want to go and see some of our materials, by all means, please do. And now, having worked on that for the past 2 years, we're sort of ready to take the project to the next stage. And really what we want to do is work with our partners to try to get digital literacy education into the school curriculum in Vietnam, starting at a very young age. That is really just a fundamental thing that has to happen. And it's not quite there yet, although many teachers, many schools are interested. About 1.5 years ago, there was a story on VN Express about a Vietnamese high school that had issued Facebook rules for its students, and these rules were, telling the students of the school to don't share too much personal information online, don't use profanity, don't don't share untrue information. 5 or 6 points that are all perfectly valid. They're all perfectly good points. But issuing that sort of set of rules to kids, I don't care if they're Vietnamese kids or any other kids, they're teenagers, right? If you sort of issue a set of rules that's don't do this, I would say that that's not really the effective way to try to overcome emerging problems on social media. So we are really looking at the type of campaigns that we do are much more interactive. We're trying to empower youth to create videos, to create poster art, to come up with song lyrics. So we've done a lot of different things that are really trying to involve kids in social media campaigns in a way that gives them a structure to participate in learning, but also gives them freedom and a kind of sense of creativity that's their own. And that we feel is sort of what we want to try to impart when we approach the Vietnamese government, Ministry of Education officials, with our partners to try to get new ways of getting digital literacy into the school curriculum.
Thank you, Michael. It's great. I remember in the last panels, researchers from Thailand, he said that open data is not about access the existing knowledge, but about how to create the new knowledge. So we have Vietnam Internet Forum. So this is the forum that all of us can raise a voice and ask questions. That's why we changed the format, and we want more questions from you for all the speakers here. And then we can discuss, at least all the backgrounds and the interests related with social media. So we want have questions from you. Yeah, please. Yeah, okay, just hold on a second for...
Hello everyone. My name is Tuấn, and thank you so much for all your speeches, and they are very interesting. So I have a question for Mr. Châu Đoàn, right? Yes. About your speech, when you talk about that in Vietnam we have a very big political party, and somehow they use their power to abuse the people, some kind of weak people. But I think it's the problem of power, it's not the problem of the party. When someone has more power than the other and they have overpowered the other, they will try to abuse some of the other people. I think that problem will also still on Facebook, on any kind of social media. When you have a lot of power on social media, you will try to cyberbully, attack someone, lead the topic, and force someone to attack the other people. So I don't think social media give a chance for weak people to talk or give power to the weak people. Why? Because you on social media, you only open another kind of playground. It's only a different playground. Maybe some people who don't have political power can join that playground and gain their own power. But that doesn't mean they give all the weak people the power to talk. For example, we have someone who has the power in both political playground and media playground, such as President Donald Trump, for the poor people. They don't even have political power or media power at all. No one listens to them on the media if they don't have many friends, many followers, for example. So, so can you tell me how social media can weaponize the people, the one who don't have power at all? So, as in your speech, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Tuấn, for your question. First of all, I would like to clarify my speech. I said, I didn't mention about the party. What I said is about political system. Because when we have a system that is not really complete, a lot of things we need to build up. We need a thing. We need to we are in the process of developing. And then there are a lot of holes in the system. So because of that, those kind of shortcoming, then it's some people. I'm not saying the whole system. Okay, I mean the example I raised here is like some local government official, yeah, who use the power to punish the people who speak about the truth. Yeah. And the recent case, you know, another example is like a doctor who wrote only one sentence on Facebook and talking about the Minister of Health. And you know, that's the Ministry of Health or the Department of Information, and also the police department called that person. And that doctor had to take down, had to delete the post and apologize, wrote a letter and apologized to the minister. But then at the end, it turned out the whole system, the whole Facebook community, and also even journalism, the mainstream journalism, different newspaper have story to support that doctor and saying that that sentence is nothing to, I mean, it's not right, it's totally legal. And he only speaks from his perspective, and he only used the local language to call that the minister, and that creates the misunderstanding. And at the end, they have to return him with the $5 million, the fine. Okay? All right? And the second point you mentioned here is about, yes, you are right. I mean, like Donald Trump, he has the political power, but he also have like the number of followers, and he has power on social media. And some voiceless people who have only about 200 friends and maybe like 10 followers, when they speak, how can he protect himself? But the good thing about social media is when someone's speaking about the truth and something strange happens, like something is not, it doesn't meet the common sense. And someone like me, someone like Mr. Zhang here, yeah, or like Michael, yeah, or like Anne, and suddenly someone passed the information to me or to my colleagues here, and then I would contact the person and ask, what's the problem? Tell me the truth. Tell me more about your case. Tell me about your trouble. And then I may come over. I may make a phone call and I find out about what's the problem he has. Then I will raise my voice. Or my colleagues will post something to support that person. Yeah? Then we see that example in Vietnam a lot. That is the good thing about the social media. And of course, I mean, in here, we're not only talking about the good thing about social media, we should talk about the problem that social media can create to society. But we talk about that in order to find a solution, to overcome, to fix the problem. Not like to fear, not like to shut down everything, you know. And just, yeah. I mean, we had to continue in our route to somehow to make the social media is a good thing for society. Because social media, just like a big road, everyone from the village come out. And if they're not careful, they are run over they meet a traffic accident. So we need to have a rule, we need to have a law, okay? Then that's why we need to discuss here. Yes?
Thank you. Yes. But very quick. Yeah. You can speak loudly. You can.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. Can you hear my voice?
Sure.
Okay. So when you mentioned about that quick people on the social media, they can approach you or your colleges to tell about their problem. I think under some government, they can also do the same thing when they meet some official to tell about their problem. So the problem is that they all need to visit and meet some powerful guys to ask for their help, either on social media or on political aspect. So I think that social media only open another playground for people to show another kind of power. It may have a different rule, but it functions in the same way with political playground. So about your problem when you mentioned that someone they may tell something about the truth on social media and they get corrupted by the police. I just want to ask, Vietnamese government have some way to control social media. China even have.
Then please have a very short and very quick feedback. Yeah, otherwise give the questions for the
So we
audience.
all know that like China they shut up Facebook. In USA from the Edward Snowden case, they even know that USA tried to take the information from people. So we can see that every government tries to control people on social media. So my question is that really should government do so? On my private government should do, but how should they do that to make people feel that, okay, I am open here, I can raise my voice here, but the government can still control to not create any chaos in their country? So that's my question, like how can government do that to beneficial to their people?
Mr. Cho Duan is not the authorities to answer that question. Yeah, but you can hear the
okay.
questions. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter how many questions you raise, but the matter is how deep you are dig into the problem. Okay, I really like the hard question because we are not. Yes. I mean, you're saying is totally true. If you are not careful, the social media can be another tool for the power struggle. But the good thing about social media is everyone can raise their voice. In the past, only journalists can write story, right? But now everyone can write story. And for example, like I care about a lot of things in this social media, on Facebook. For example, like a wife who was beaten up by her husband, and her parents do not support her. Her brother, her sister, her friends do not support her. And in Vietnamese, for international friends, we have like some saying which I don't like in Vietnamese. The first one is say, we should shut the door and we should teach each other. Okay? I don't like that. Now it's an open area. We should not shut the door and we beat each other up and then we say we are teaching each other. No. If you have problem, you should speak out. Okay? And another word in Vietnamese saying is like, it goes proverb, right? Like, don't expose, don't open the shirt to show the naked back. Yeah? Đừng vạch áo cho người xem lưng nhé. That's also, I don't like that. A lot of things happen in this society, even present in some saying, which I don't like. Sometimes we have both, but the family, the close friend cannot help us. We need to share our story.
Yeah.
Then other people who have knowledge, who have experience, can help us.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Zhang.
Yeah, my friend Zhang will continue my answer.
Okay.
I'm very sympathetic to the question of Tuan. I think this is a very serious question we need to think about. And although I share Joe's enthusiasm and the positive attitude towards social media, but I'm afraid that given the current situation, probably your view is too romantic. You know, not every ordinary person who got a smartphone could become a journalist. You know. We still need professional people like Anne, you know, because if a person with the potential, you know, to speak out loudly, but without the ethics, without the principle, without the code of conduct, without the training, could do more harm than good.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first point. Second point, as Tuan pointed out, you know, there's a lot of people on social media who are also powerless because they just got 10 friends and 5 followers. And then you reply that, you know, they could come to you or to me or to Mike or to Anne. But I don't think that's the solution, because in that world, we also become a gatekeeper. Like in the old world, you know, the BBC journalists or some Vietnamese journalists are the gatekeeper, you know, to produce or to amplify the stories. So in the new world, you know, celebrities or people with influence like you, you know, 30,000 followers, become the new gatekeeper, and that could not be the new world, you know. So I think the situation of power inequality, power imbalance will remain and not resolved by social media. Social media could not resolve that problem. So that's the second point. The third point is, what should we demand the government to do? I think it's a perfect question to ask, you know. Personally, right now in Vietnam, I would like to ask the Vietnamese government to not to shut down internet and social media, you know, allow freedom of expression, freedom of speech, you know, keep down minimal regulation in terms of what is forbidden to say, to talk on the internet, you know, but also create a legal framework to constrain, to keep in check hate speech, you know, denunciation, rumors, you know, destroying reputation and so on and so on. This is hard, but we need to do it because otherwise the village market as and pictures will become a playground for the bully, for the aggressive, for the loud one, for the very aggressive one. And we will be chasing out of that playground, and you know, and that's not something we want to do.
Or as Tuấn said, that the people will have more powers, like KOL, they can make use of it, with bully the other one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I certainly am also very sympathetic to Tuan's viewpoint, but I wonder if there are at least some examples where social media is a different channel and not just you know, repeating the same power structures, but actually does offer something new. What about Viet Pride and the progress that LGBT activists have made in Vietnam over the last 3 years? Can you really say that without social media, only with the traditional mainstream media, they would have had the same voice, they would have been able to reach the population with their message? That's an example where I thought social media was offering people who don't have as much of a voice in the past a way to make their argument, if they will, and to make progress with their issues. So that was one area where I thought my feeling was that social media was offering something new. I don't know whether other people agree with that or not, but that was at least my sort of feeling, was that there are some positive cases that we can build from.
Yeah. I mean, LGBT case is perfect one. And the person who came talk about that case this morning, I saw him this morning, living, but he's not here, I think. Yeah. Okay, yeah, please.
Hello, my name's Graham Knight. I'm from the British Embassy, working on a lot of the issues that we're discussing today. Just as a way of introduction, I'm the opposite to Mr. Zhang and Mr. Chow Duan. I probably don't spend enough time on social media, actually. I'm a bit of a technophobe. In fact, every anniversary, my wife tells me I need to go onto Facebook and tell the world how much I love her, but I just tell her that I'll tell it to her face and I don't need to tell everyone that I'm following on Facebook. I think we've touched on some very interesting issues, actually. The question of state regulation of social media, and it's definitely something that we grapple with in the UK. I just say from my perspective, it's important to make a distinction between what is genuinely what we should consider freedom of expression and what is hate speech and what is fake news. I think recently fake news and hate speech have become very convenient terms for labelling what is genuine discussion about issues of genuine public interest. And I think sometimes it's very convenient just to label something as fake news if you don't want to engage with it on a policy level, and engage with the criticism and the policy issues that are being discussed. But I'm glad to see we're talking about the opportunities as well as the challenges of social media, and I think we touched on some of them. My sort of question is about some of the algorithms that social media use, so Twitter and Facebook. Something that I've perceived in the UK and possibly in the US, I'm not so sure, but social media tends to reinforce views that people have, and it also promotes people on social media who shout the loudest or say the most extreme things, and I'm a Guardian reader. I would consider myself on the left of, centre left of the political spectrum. But something I've been trying to force myself to do is to go onto social media and to try and find some of these alternative discussions that are people having and trying to understand them and engage with them. But I don't think there's that many people out there that do that. So I'm just interested in Vietnam, the extent to which you're seeing that as a problem, that social media is reinforcing certain viewpoints that people have and certain things that they're posting onto social media. And perhaps a more global question is, what can we do about that?
You want to respond his comment and questions from Mr. Graham? Yeah, please.
I can talk briefly, though not about the situation in Vietnam, obviously. But I would just like to echo Graham's point on the term fake news. This term worries me a lot, and in my training I actually discourage journalists to use this label. In my long career at Reuters, we were told to always show, don't tell. Use facts, data, and precise language to describe a situation, not general labels open to misinterpretation. My issue with fake news is that it masks many kind of types and motivations for misleading news, from deliberate misinformation to promote or damage a cause, an entity, a person, to the twisting of the facts that you may see some businesses do for PR purposes, through to genuine misunderstandings or issues that are so complex that there are different types of opinion around them. So that's my feeling on fake news. As regards filter bubbles and confirmation bias, which is a risk that we all face on social media, only hearing from our tribe, from our interest group, from our like-minded community. I can only speak for journalists and the advice I give to journalists, because I think journalists also need to always be aware that we too can fall into these temptations. And so when I do my training, part of that training is about encouraging journalists to surface their own worldview and viewpoints, and then really challenge themselves to do, as Graham said, to seek opposing views and try to disprove a hypothesis rather than prove what you want or believe to be true.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, just to respond to Graham's question. Yeah, you're right that fake news and hate speech are convenient labels somehow to shut down people. But also, in many cases, they are true. So what I would like to see in Vietnam is that independent mechanism where I could go to court and say, hey, look, I'm a victim of hate speech. And that independent agent could settle down the issue, And right now in Vietnam, we don't have that kind of thing. Maybe sometimes the Ministry of Communication will say, this is fake news, and we have to take it for granted. We don't have a channel to challenge that view. Or sometimes the government will say, this is hate speech, but actually it's not, and there's no channel for us to go to court and to challenge that decision. So we need an independent mechanism to settle, like in every disputes, in other areas. The second question you talk about, the echo chamber or the bubble, I think it exists in Vietnam. I mean, the Facebook algorithm, it's the same also for Vietnamese. And I got the same problem that, in my news feeds, I will not see any, let's say, pro-government comments, even if I want to. because the algorithm filter out all of them. I think it's a bad thing, you know, because all the day, all the time, we hear the same opinion. We are among like-minded people, which is bad for democracy, because then at the point you don't understand the other group of population, right?
Yeah.
So like you, I actively like some pro-government page, but I think they are still, you know, not enough. So in my newsfeed, you know, his posts show up, you know, many times, and so on, so on. I think it's a real problem.
Okay.
I want to add a little bit. I mean, what we are talking here is like only the half of the story. For example, I want to share my personal experience. I write some post. If I use a word, maybe it's not totally wrong, only one word, and my friend corrected me. Okay? Then I listen to them, then I think, oh, thank you for your correction. If you have a hate speech, you write something, the fake news, okay? You may cheat people once or twice, yeah? But the third time, no one listens to you. And people, for me, in the past, I also get tricked by the fake news, yeah? And as a person who have a quick response, I would write something to like, you know, it's raised my blood pressure, and I feeling mad. I trust that information source. But then I learned, I'm involved on Facebook. I read people's posts, I read their comments, then I adjust my attitude. I become a better writer, more calmer information receiver. And I have my language also have to adjust. Somehow have to be moderate, more exact, yeah, and not put too much emotion into my writing. Yeah, so I become more professional on Facebook. So everyone's like that also on Facebook, even the newcomer. They also like me at the beginning. They can have a very quick react. They can put a lot of too much emotion into the post, but they adjust, okay? Because we are all in a learning process on Facebook. So I don't think we should not fear hate speech. We should not fear fake news. They don't last.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have more questions. One point that you can ask in Vietnamese because we have a translator, so feel free to raise your questions. Please, yeah.
So I would like to contribute my ideas about that questions. So as a Vietnamese citizen, so I find that social media is so useful and so important to my life. So for example, I can understand, I can speak English, I can write English, is thanks to also social media. Because for my childhood, I did not have opportunity to learn English. And then thanks to social media, I can learn a lot of, to get update on a lot of things thanks to social media. I can also learn other foreign language like French with social media, with Facebook, for example. Speak in French with French people, for example. I cannot now imagine, I open my eye, and I cannot get update about knowledge without Google, without Facebook. I am aware of the bad things that social media can cause. But I think that it is so important for my life and for my children's life also. They can learn a lot of things through social media. With this conference, we are talking about the industry of 4.0, for example. We are talking about blockchain, and I cannot imagine without internet, without social media. How can I learn? How can I update with that? And you also mentioned about LGBT community, and with my professional life, we are also working on supporting LGBT people to use social media to promote their work and also to get access to healthy services. And we support the gay community to set up a Facebook name Rainbow Village Hamlet. And with that, we have 230,000 members. And we support this community to promote the healthy services to to the community, and they can get instant information about the county services. And we also support the LGBT community to set up social enterprise. And social enterprise use social media to promote about the service to other people. And I think that is so useful for our professional life and also for our personal life. Although I am aware of the how to say negative impact, and not because of that, that can really prohibit the use of social media. Yes.
Thank you so much for your sharing. And any other questions? Yeah, the lady in white.
Alright, so good afternoon everyone. I'm from the Academy of Journalism and Communication. So I have a question for Mr. Đặng Hoàng Giang. Alright, so as we know, famous people always have some pressure when they post on Facebook, on media. Like they always have to care about how their follower will react to the post. So can you share more about your pressures when you write something, especially when you express your opinion about something controversial in our society on Facebook? Thank you very much.
Yeah. And also, journalist Hoàng Hương, you also have a question? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Thuy Dương, and I come from Huế University. And I have two questions for panelists. The first is Mr. Châu Đoan and Ms. An. Mr. Châu Đoan, I know you is the famous blogger citizen journalist in Vietnam. And what is pressure you have when you writing information on your Facebook? And Ms. Annie, how can you balance the voice when you are on media and what you write to new organization?
You mean that how she balance on writing on social media and
yes.
also for her news organization, right?
Yes.
Okay, you got it right. Okay, thank you. So we have 3 questions so far. So the first question is for Dr. Đặng Hoàng Giang. Yeah, please.
So if I understand correctly, then you would like to know the pressure I have when I work in social media. I think the pressure, at least in my case, is great. It is a big pressure. Just one example, in the last years, I was invited many times by the security forces because other activities. And never my wife said anything about that. She was never worried about that. She was cool. Last year I wrote about Hồ Ngọc Hà. Actually, you know the story of Hồ Ngọc Hà for our friends here. She's a famous singer, and she was the third one in the how do you say it, in the romantic affairs.
Oh, okay.
Right?
The third person.
Third person, right? And she was victim of hate speech on the internet, hate storm. And I write to calm down people and say that we should respect her life, we should respect her dignity, her privacy. We have no right to mess around with her life, and so on and so on. And the hate storm I received afterward was so big that my wife was worried, my parents was worried, and they told me to shut up. And I just asked myself, where are we living? What kind of world are we living into where I could not say my opinion in a very measured and normal way, no insulting anybody, but I just want to raise my voice. This is my rights, and this is where social media is supposed to be, And the pressure of these people is so big that, people are scared. So Churchill said that there, no fear of hate speech. No, people fear. People fear a lot about hate speech, and it could destroy your reputation, your psychological, mental situation, and so on and so on. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that. Luckily, I got support from my colleagues, and so on. But let's say I'm just a small, simple person, and then nobody to back up, nobody to cry on their shoulder, and so on, and so on. And then that person could never will come back to social media.
Yeah, thank you so much for your questions. And we continue with the questions for Mr. Châu Đoàn.
So very similar question.
Yes, similar.
That's for me. Frankly, I don't have a lot of pressure because as a martial artist, I have to overcome the fear every day. And that's the lesson of the training. I mean, you want to be stronger, you have to deal. You have to deal with the problem. I always tell my students, life is like a river. And you are always walking, you are swimming against the current. Only strong people can enjoy life, can enjoy the beauty on the side of the river. If you are weak, you are swept away by the current. Zhang has hate speech against him, but I'm his friend. I said, Zhang, no problem. Just ignore him, ignore them, okay? And then I do a lot with my friends, And that is a friend's fault. I said someone posts on criticize Zhang, I don't immediately he's bad guy, I don't look at him under other people's perspective. Why do I have to do that? I have to check information, I have to read their posts, I have to compare the information, I have to dig deeper into the truth. Okay? We are only talking about the hard story here. Yeah? So why pressure? Because no one pays me on Facebook. I don't have a boss. And it doesn't matter how many people follow me on the Facebook. And I write because I'm the boss of myself. I say something, I see something, I read something, that's important. Then I think, I have to write about it. Then I write. Why do I have to pressure? If some naughty guy who called my name on Facebook, who wrote bad thing, why do I need to answer him? Why do I have to explain myself to everybody on Facebook? No. If you look at the broad picture, and if you overcome the problem, you become relaxed. You don't worry. You don't worry. And you don't fear. You have to overcome the obstacle. You have to overcome the pressure every day of your life.
But you know that we have over 15 million internet users, and not all the people have the same courage as you. Yeah.
That is the point.
Yeah.
That is the point. Because the fear is a problem in Vietnam. When I first, about 4 or 5 years ago, when I first posting something on Facebook, and even my close friends say, Joe, why did you do that? You want to go to jail? Of course I don't want to go to jail. But because it is the truth, and I'm simply only posting something about the truth. If I have to go to jail because I'm speaking the truth, then maybe it's worth it. Of course, not everyone can live like that way, but I want to encourage people to live that way. And life have less meaning when you have a lot of fear. And you only live happily, more happily, when you have less fear in yourself. Anyway, life's limited. You don't live forever. You do something, you believe that is the meaningful to do, the worth to do. Not because we don't do something because we fear of the consequences.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
One sentence. I think we are very cautious. We should be very cautious not to blame the victims. So if somebody broke down because she got 2 million hate speech calling her name and compare her with a dog, and we should be cautious not to tell her, oh, you're too weak. You should swim against the currents. You should learn karate. We should protect her and say what's wrong and what's right.
Then we need to support her. We need to contact her and say, you will pass it, and I'm your friend. I'm support you, and we have to raise our voice to protect her, protect him from the bad people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And we move the questions to for An. You want to answer it? Yeah.
I hope I understood your question correctly. Was it about how we balance the risks and rewards of
how you balance
publishing on social media?
And news organization.
Your personal. Okay. Got it. So, on the first point, for most of my career, I actually think I was fortunate to work for a media organisation that had very clear ethics and values. And the most important thing was sticking to those and not being tempted into inaccurate or sensationalist news. And Reuters, my previous employer, had a reliable revenue stream from its professional financial information business that could subsidise and support its broader journalism. So there was not the temptation there to go down the route of clickbait or sensationalist coverage. But I know that many journalists are not so fortunate. So in that case, the social media was more a reporting tool than a publishing platform for my previous employer. And so we had very strict guidelines and checklists on verification and not going to publish until we were pretty sure of the provenance and the authenticity of material, especially from social media and especially video. So companies such as Reuters or the Associated Press, for example, they have specialist verification teams now whose sole job is to authenticate and verify social media content using their long experience as journalists and also increasing number of tools to help them in that regard. As regards publishing, my previous employer also had a specialist social media team that chose which stories to adapt to optimize for social media use, so that wasn't my responsibility, thankfully.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
However, just one quick point about how do you balance your professional social media activity with your personal. And I think this is a very interesting question, especially for young journalists who everything they ever thought or felt, all their embarrassing situations, and all their, teenage rebellions or interests are all out there and findable on social media. But I do think it's very important for professional journalists to think about the digital footprint they will leave in their personal life and think about being careful about anything that might compromise their reputation in their professional life for accurate, fact-based, authoritative, rigorous reporting. But for freedom of speech reasons, you can't control journalists' activity in their personal use of social media. But I would encourage all professional journalists to think about their reputation and their longevity, and if you want to be seen to cover a sensitive or controversial topic in a balanced way, your digital footprint can come back to haunt you, potentially.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. And Ms. Hoàng Ngọc, you want to...
Dạ, tôi có thể nói bằng tiếng Việt.
Vâng, mời chị ạ. Can you listen? Yeah, please.
Từ nãy giờ có lẽ là chúng ta nói tôi thấy là các diễn giả nói cũng khá nhiều về vấn đề các tiếng nói của những người yếu thế, cơ hội để có thể là nói lên những cái cơ hội chưa được nói, hoặc là nói về những cái phát ngôn gây thù ghét, đúng không ạ? Tức là nói về một cái mạng xã hội nó hơi một chút có vẻ là hơi căng thẳng và hơi đáng sợ một chút. Chúng ta có thể nhìn theo một cái góc độ tích cực hơn nữa không ạ? Thế thì đây có phải là một cái cơ hội để chúng ta cùng học hỏi hơn hay không, kể cả là về mặt chính quyền và những người dân. Tôi có thể đưa ra một cái câu chuyện, một cái ví dụ cụ thể. Cách đây là có cách đây khoảng 2 tháng, có một cái câu chuyện như thế này. Một người phụ nữ thực sự là rất là vô danh ở trên mạng. Cô ta cũng không phải là hot Facebooker hay gì hết. Cô ta đưa một cái câu chuyện rằng là bố cô ta mất và cô ta cần một cái giấy chứng tử ở phường, và vì một lý do gì đấy thì không được ký, cô ta không được ký cái giấy đấy. Ngay hôm đó bởi vì là chị trưởng phường hay là như nào chị đi vắng và cái chị phó trưởng phường không ký, và kết quả là hôm đấy là bố cô ấy không được làm đám ma và không được, và phải hồi đến hôm sau thì ông mới được làm đám ma và ông mới được đưa đi chôn. Cái câu chuyện đấy nó tác động vào trực tiếp vào cộng đồng và nó tạo ra sự lan tỏa rất là nhanh. Thế thì đây cũng có thể là một cái câu chuyện của người yếu thế, nhưng mà đồng thời sau đấy thì cái hệ thống hành chính, hệ thống chính trị đã phải xem xét lại và thấy rằng là trong những cái khâu hành chính, những cái cụ thể chúng ta có rất nhiều điều cần phải sửa đổi, và có khi những cái cấp trên họ cũng không biết là ở cấp dưới có những cái hành xử như thế. Và đây là cái cơ hội để cho bộ máy có thể là điều chỉnh lại những vấn đề về hành chính, vấn đề của thái độ của nhân viên của họ đối với người dân. Và đây là cơ hội, mạng xã hội cũng là một cái cơ hội để cả hai chúng ta cùng trưởng thành hơn, kể cả người dân và chính quyền hay không. Còn chúng ta có thể nhìn được cái góc độ đấy hay không?
Maybe we move another questions and then come back to your comments and also questions. Please, yeah.
Thank you very much for the very interesting discussion. But I fear that maybe it's another fear that we are blaming too much Facebook. Meanwhile, we have multiple channels for social media. We used to have 360 Yahoo. We used to have a lot of websites where people raised their voices from different corners around the world and also from within Vietnam. We also have other channels like Zalo. Nowadays people in Vietnam use Zalo a lot in order to communicate and also to share information, and then to even set up groups, right? They also use Viber messengers on Facebook and many other channels. So why do we single out Facebook as the only thing to blame, or something else that is about the sensitivity of information and also fake news and so forth. So I think that I have a question for the panelists here. You may know that recently there has been a discussion about the draft law on cyber security, and a lot of discussions are targeting social media channels as one of the sources of fears for the government to shut down Google, Facebook, and so forth, right? And I think that this is very single-minded thinking, because as I said earlier, there are multiple channels for social media, for people to share information, to report on things that they care about, to voice up, and to have freedom of the internet and expression. So why should we single out Google and Facebook in the discourse of discussion around the draft law on cyber security? So if you can just think about it and then discuss a little bit about it, then I think that we can find a way out of the current fears, not only from the government side, but also some portions of the populations in Vietnam, that these social media channels are doing more harm than good. But I believe that they are doing also good than harms if we really know where the code of conduct is, as Giang said, or the check of and balance of information that we have or get access to, then that would be good. And I think for the United Nations, freedom to the internet and freedom to expressions and media are the key human rights, sort of principles for human beings. So I just hope that all these fears might be controlled in a more like sort of empathetic ways, fear-based way.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I think for these questions, Michael Gray spent 12 years in Vietnam, and your expertise is about internet safety, so you can answer her questions about cyber security. You want to do it first? Yeah, can you repeat your questions in a very short sentence so Michael Gray can answer your questions?
I think this is might be more relevant to Zhang and Joe, because they might have followed up on the cyber security drug law, and if from the international experiences you have some lessons somewhere to learn for Vietnam in order to really provide inputs for the ongoing discussions around the sensitivity of social media in regards to cyber security, then that would be great.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the draft law.
Yeah.
As far as sort of the dominance of Google and Facebook, and why do people talk so much about those two? I think it's just as numbers that no one wants to lose Facebook and or Google, and the draft law as it exists now raises that question that no one can answer. Is enacted with a requirement that Google and Facebook move servers into Vietnam, what will happen? And there's no answer, and so people are just like, am I going to lose my Facebook? And so I think that's just a question that's still sort of open, whereas there are other popular channels like Zalo. I'm not so familiar with Zalo, but there's just there's no comparison really to the universality of Facebook, because it's so international, and it's how Vietnamese people connect outside the country too, with family members and friends and the outside world. So I think that's the level of concern. That's the reason why the concern is there. I have no knowledge on how the debates are currently going and what would actually happen if the law is enacted as it is. I think it's just a question mark.
I think in general, every citizen in every country worry that the government could obtain the data from the companies, right? And that worry is going on in every country. I think the worry also is real in Vietnam, and I really don't like the government to have my chat contents, hand over from Facebook or Gmail chat, right? And I will protest if that happens. Right? I mean, back to Hoàng Lương question about the positive example of internet social media, for sure. I mean, there's like hundreds of cases like that. Another very nice case is the one rural teacher, a female teacher, filming with her smartphone how her kids have to be in the plastic bag and then pushed over the river because there's no bridge. So the kids have to be in the plastic bag, pushed by a strong swimmer to the other side. And I think a week later, a bridge was built over the river. So very interesting example.
Yeah.
But also, Facebook could be, drive teenager to suicide because her sex clip is shared a million times. So I think the question here and the task we have to do is how to keep all the positive side, like that example, and also keep in check, reduce the negative side. Right?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, Michael Gray wanted to ask you a question.
On that particular note, I wanted to ask the audience a question, which is, look, we're having a very frank discussion here about the positive and the negative, and the most vulnerable are youth. So I wanted to ask the parents in the room, how have you dealt with the issue of social media and its impact on youth with your children? I know it's a young audience, but there must be some parents here who have kids that are using social media. Have you given them any guidance? Have you been talking to them? Or do you kind of leave them alone with their phones? Does anyone have any sort of insight on that?
Okay, Victoria.
Actually, now I just want to advertise something. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but tomorrow morning we will do a quite interesting launch together with Save the Children of a handbook that is called NetSmart. And it actually really touches upon this very subject on how parents and teachers and I mean the grown-ups basically can talk to children about the threats on the internet, and this is specifically on sexual abuse online. So I think for the ones who want to learn more about this topic, please join us tomorrow morning starting at 8:30. We will launch the handbook NetSmart translated into Vietnamese. My kids are too young to be online yet, so I can't say anything about that. Sorry.
Thank you for your information. But any audience in this room want to answer this question? Yeah.
Thank you, Michael, because I want I plan to ask the same question to our speakers. I myself, I have daughter, and I worried a lot about social media with my daughter. And my daughter is one of the students which have the Facebook very late in her class. And her classmates they have Facebook and they talk to each other. But I see that because when my daughter and my son, they ask me, okay, so let me have Facebook. Okay, so I asked them what for and what you will use it for. And of course, they said that I want to share with my friends something, with teachers something. I watch some, and I see that I sometimes spend. Okay, so first my plan. My daughter, she has just the Facebook recently. She made by herself. And when I watch, I see that, okay, so very little chatting and observation. Okay, it means that still in my hand, I can control. But I see that to be prepared with them is really important. And I spend some time to talk to her what is on internet. It's not just about Facebook or the social media, but it's about the internet. Okay, so how to use internet because it's too many things, useful and scam. Okay, so I cannot protect you every minute and every day. So first, to be very careful and especially about the private life, do not show. But I myself, I see that not everything I talk to her, she will understand and she will follow. Maybe sometime, maybe next year or sometime, I can be amazed or surprised with what she do. Because it's very normal for the student at that age. Sometimes they do totally different than our expectation. So I have my question for the speaker and others as well. Okay, so how to guide our young generation to use social media very useful? Should we have some kind of a guideline or integrate into the school? I mean that's the curriculum. Sometimes so that to make them more be prepared with the using the internet and then social media.
You should come here tomorrow morning at 8:30 to get the free copies of the handbook. NetSmart. Please.
But okay, so a little bit more because I see that here and there we have some kind of initiative. But we have millions of young. So how to make it very official and how to make it very intensive impact into the young generation? Okay.
Yeah. You want to say
okay, well, I'm sure it'll be discussed tomorrow, but just very quickly, I mean, there are excellent resources. Parents should be very involved in helping to guide their children, and it needs to be in schools at a young age. Countries in the region, like South Korea, like Singapore, have excellent materials that are already developed that Vietnam can adapt and then put into schools, and a lot of the programs have components for teachers, for the students themselves, of course, and for parents as well. So I'm familiar with some of those, and that's certainly one of the things that my project wants to work towards now, is working with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information Communications, and try to discuss with them these types of programs and how to get it into the curriculum.
Yeah, thank you. We still have some questions to go. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Son. I work for UNICEF. I want to ask a question on how can we balance the need for cybersecurity and online freedom of expression, because I also noticed that, for example, if hypothetically a terrorist have a message that they discuss online, and I want to know that message to meet my need of security and safety, but I will violate some of the human rights value. So I want to ask about what can we do to balance cybersecurity and freedom of expression digitally.
You are an expert in anti-hacking, right? Hacking.
Tough one. I'm not sure if I have a very good answer for that.
I think,
yeah. No, I mean, I'm not sure how to answer that in terms of here in Vietnam, especially. I mean, governments definitely have concerns with, not just governments, societies with, beyond online hate, but moving towards terrorism and violence. Myanmar today with the Muslim community of Rakhine State. Okay, so that's moved from far beyond online hate. That's how it sort of started, and to a certain extent, you're now talking about the emergence of terrorism. Governments and societies have real concerns with that. Very difficult to balance in that type of a situation where there's violence going on. How do you balance that with freedom of expression? I almost feel like that's over my head to answer. I'm not a journalist, and so it's not something that I have sort of direct experience with. I would say, there are countries where that's a very, very serious issue. I don't know if Vietnam is in that sort of a state.
Yeah. You would
I think just very short. Luckily, I think Vietnam is not one of the countries where the threat of terrorism is very real. But just in theory, I think that kind of situation, in the ideal world, we will have, the government and the office will have to have a court order in order to do the surveillance, right? And the court, truly independent, will have to assess every case if it's, appropriate to the goals of the government that, I want to do surveillance on that and that person. So that's the ideal one.
Yeah. You want to add anything? Yes, that's fine. Okay.
One thing I could add on cybersecurity, Vietnam has many cybersecurity concerns, and it was about a year ago when Noi Bai Airport was hacked. Okay, so that's the type of cybersecurity concern that you have in Vietnam, and that affects the country, everyone, right? It's not just government and the people. But one of the things that I would say is that each individual person, their understanding and their cybersecurity practices of protecting their accounts and understanding that you don't pick up a USB and plug it into your computer at work and share files back and forth. Every individual contributes to the nation's overall, their community and their nation's cybersecurity. And so from the perspective of governments that are writing cybersecurity laws, your citizens are your allies. They need the skills to contribute to an overall environment of better cybersecurity. And so that's, I think, the issue here in Vietnam is bridging that divide or that gap and making sure that every citizen and youth understand that cybersecurity is for themselves and it contributes to a collective security as well.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a couple more minutes for the last question? Yeah.
Something about cybersecurity.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I just want to add a little thing. So far, I think when we talk about cybersecurity, and we mostly only, the threat is for the government information. And you want to mention about the personal security, right? I mean, you just need to care about it. I mean, you need to do the several layer of the security. But this is the point I want to talk about, is the good thing about the social media is we can use our real name, and I mean, my perspective is that the social media has a certain kind of power. I myself post a picture of my children, my wife, my personal story, personal experience. And I also talk about political issues, about the society problems. So people can feel they connect to me. And that is the beauty of the social media. When you read a story on some newspaper, you see some name, but name is only name. Sometimes it's a fake name. For some sensitive story, they won't put fake name because no one wants to be responsible. So that's why I encourage people to use their real avatar, and we just be frank in social media, and be honest and responsible in social media, just like in the real life when you're talking with your friend. So you need to speak the truth, honest about it, frank, and also responsible, and be careful. Yeah, I mean, you have to find out what the problem first. Really know the story before you write something. And a lot of things in Vietnam, we see something happen in society, and then the Facebook community divided into two parts. One is support for the idea, the other one against it, and they unfriend each other, they block each other. But the meaning of the social media is connecting people, not dividing. Yeah. And I think.
Thank you so much, and time is up, and we have to move upstairs for the reflection and highlights of the day, and also Internet Award ceremony. I'm sorry, but thank you so much for your listening.